Hong Kong is not a difficult place to fall in love with, I have very strong feelings about this place. I was born in Hong Kong. Well, not strictly speaking true. I was born in Kowloon. But you know what I mean. I think anybody who grew up in Hong Kong, if he travels abroad and when he comes back, I think seeing the Lion Rock is what tells him he's home.
包致金嘅香港故事由1841年香港開埠之前講起。佢媽媽嘅太公當年行船由西印度橫過印度洋、南中國海嚟到香港，後來同一個漁村出身嘅本地女人結婚，落地生根。包致金嘅爸爸包大衛就嚟自英屬印度白沙雅。1945年二戰結束，香港重光，佢跟隨英屬印度自由軍嚟香港，由日軍手上接收香港。冇幾耐就喺香港遇上未來太太，即係包致金嘅媽媽，生咗3個仔女。包致金排第2，1947年出世。睇返媽媽嘅家族史，包致金已經係第5代香港人。
So those are my Hong Kong origins. I was born here and spent almost all my life here. In many ways, I'm more of a Hong Kong person than a lot of others.
包致金嘅爸爸退役之後，喺香港管理碼頭貨倉，後來喺港大夜校進修，轉戰金融市場，經營證券公司。包致金嘅媽媽就嚟自夏佳理家族，家世顯赫，名人輩出。港交所前主席夏佳理係包致金表哥。
I mean, I've been very lucky in that some members of the family, especially my mother's side, were fabulously rich. But I had the good fortune not to inherit any of this money, because that would have spoiled the fun.
親戚住半山，佢就話慶幸自己細個嗰陣住柯士甸道。
I think quite honestly in those days, living in the downtown area was probably more fun for the kids. Where Tsim Sha Tsui East is now, used to be part of the railway tracks and Holt's Wharf. And you could go there and climb onto the stationary sort of railway cars and play. You could fish there. And also pahin. You can collect heen for cook with dausi. Now, I tell you this, that I don't care what the background of the child was. He could be British, he could be Portuguese, he could be mixed race, Chinese, anything you like. Every child loved above all Chinese New Year. Why? Because of the crackers. We used to burn crackers. People used to live in hope of picking up lychee packets that somebody had still left some money in there. And I think in about 20 years you might be able to find 20 cents. I found 10 cents, I think, once. But I gave it to charity because I didn't think it was an entitlement of mine.
1945年二戰結束之後，國共內戰，大量難民湧入香港，人口由大約60萬，5年間升至200幾萬人。
People were absorbed into the community. And remember, a lot of these people were Cantonese, so when you hear them speak, you would know that he was a foreigner. How would you know that he was a refugee? And why would you care? But even if you cared, how would you know?
人口膨脹，地少人多，港九陸續出現寮屋區。1953年聖誕節，石硤尾大火，超過5萬人頓失家園。包致金話：之後聽到一個古仔，佢記到而家。
When people were streaming down from the hill, the governor turned up at the scene of the disaster, and he saw the sub-inspector writing out chits and handing it to people as they were coming down from the hill. So the governor said, "What's that fellow doing?" So they went and asked him, told the governor that, look, he says that in due course, these people will be applying for rehousing because we have to rehouse them. And some of them would just be inventing that story. By giving them this piece of paper bearing my signature, it is not perfect evidence, but it's some evidence that I saw him coming down from the hill. And the governor said, promote him. Now, that was a great act of initiative on the part of this young officer. I don't know if today the attitude would be the same. Somebody might say, who is this young officer to give out official documents on his own initiative without consulting his superiors? But I think in those days, with this sort of, can-do attitude of initiative, it is quite interesting.
20歲去到英國修讀法律，4年之後返香港，喺張傲偉大律師事務所正式執業。冇幾耐就喺事務所遇上未來太太，包中善薇。
What do you think of this picture? I'm the photographer. And this was my wife when she was a bit younger.
Wow. Was that love at first sight?
No, because she is the girl of my dreams. And I was in love with her long before we ever met. Love at first sight is not good enough.
兩夫妻都係法官，3個女都讀法律。包致金曾經喺回憶錄提到，佢嘅曾祖父好憎律師，仲話所有律師都係騙子。
If you have a court case, you go to a lawyer, and your lawyer is doing the best that he can for you, but the lawyer on the other side is trying to do you down. So the law naturally provokes a certain amount of resentment. Now, how would you feel about doctors if you were sick and one doctor was curing you and the other was trying to make you ill? That's life.
律師生涯頭5年，包致金處理過20宗謀殺案。當年香港仲有死刑，1966年最後一次執行。英國1年之後廢除死刑，香港未有即時跟隨，法例仍然喺度。不過死囚通常都會獲英女王特赦。
When I started, the expectation was that the death penalty would not be carried out. But you weren't that sure about it. It is quite anxious. He may well have done it, taken a human life, and you see the family giving evidence, and it's terrible. But also you are responsible for this man's fate. And all of those cases in which I defended were in the old Supreme Court building, which is the Court of Final Appeal building now. And I must say, even today, when I am back in the Court of Final Appeal building, I still have a slightly uncomfortable feeling, thinking back about those homicide cases in that building in those days. It's at the back of my mind, but it's still there.
24歲執業，用咗12年獲委任做御用大律師。去到1989年，包致金收到當年嘅首席按察司楊鐵良嘅邀請，加入全職法官行列。
He asked me, I was 41, and I did want to be a judge, although probably I would have preferred to continue practicing for a little bit longer. But when he asked me, I felt that I ought to say yes. In fact, it was said in very few words. He sent for me, and I think his words were, you count the number of words, I am offering you the High Court bench. And I said, I accept. How many words was that? Depends on whether you count I am or I'm. Rupert, come here. And my dog barking. I think he's telling this guy to give us lunch because he heard me say 12 o'clock. But never mind, you go on for a bit.
Okay. And
Rupert, come here. Keep you quiet. He's hungry, you know.
I know.
They're not so tough, you know. I, as an old man, am tough, and you, as a woman are always tough. But these young punks, they can't. I'm not.
97年主權移交，香港終審法院取代倫敦樞密院嘅司法委員會，成為香港最高嘅上訴法院。包致金係首批中院常任法官之一，在任15年，中院90%半嘅案件佢都有份審理，發表嘅異議裁決亦都比其他法官多，被譽為最開明法官，有包拗頸嘅稱號。
We used to joke that dissenters were thrown to the crocodiles, and usually it was me, you see, who was thrown to the crocodile.
呢個笑話成為咗包致金之後出書嘅靈感。佢透過唔同角色反思法律嘅課題，講人權自由，講民主選舉。亦都唔怕因為異議成為少數派。好似02年嘅梁國雄遊行案，政府首次引用公安條例控告佢遊行冇事先通知警方係非法集會。梁國雄提出上訴，中院以4-1判佢敗訴，話警務處長限制集會合憲，支持梁國雄嗰一票嚟自包致金。
First of all, most of the time we agreed. But on the occasions when we are disagreed, there probably is some fundamental orientation of thinking. I have a very firm belief that one should try to uphold, in a practical way, human rights as far as possible. And I also happen to think you can go quite far in respect to what is possible.
呢份對人權嘅堅持令佢多次成為少數派，但佢話從未感到沮喪。
Well, very often the law develops so as to accept a dissenting judgment. So dissents help the way the law develops.
2011年，中院就剛果案決定提請人大釋法，包致金唔同意，再次提出異議，之後就收到政府唔再續任嘅通知。
Well, it wasn't immediately afterwards, but when the time came, I was asked to become a non-permanent judge, which is another way of saying you're not going to be extended as a permanent judge. But that's fine. I mean, I feel that I would have made a greater contribution if I was a permanent judge sitting full time than if I was merely sitting as a non-permanent judge part-time. But what opportunities one has to make contributions very often depends on other people. And once I saw that my opportunities were reduced, then I decided, well, the best thing to do is to make the most of such reduced opportunities as you have. So I think that's the only practical way of looking at it, really, quite honestly.
接任嘅法官同包致金同齡，但係就獲政府批准延長任期。
Well, I wasn't upset personally because there were plenty of other things for me to do, but I was a little bit concerned as to what sort of sign of the times it might be. Let's put it this way, we mustn't think anything which would be disrespectful to the judges who remained or to the judge who replaced me, or say anything which would cause people to have less faith in them. And in fact, I was very keen when I retired to say that people should have continued faith in the judiciary. After all, I did, and do.
2012年卸任中院常任法官，轉做非常任法官。9年之後，鮑治更冇諗過退落嚟，亦都冇諗過離開香港。
This is where I've grown up, and I'm never going to leave this place. And if somebody leaves Hong Kong now, they make that choice, it's not an insult to Hong Kong. I prefer their company. I would be very happy if they came back, but if they never came back, I wish them well wherever they go. I have some faith that there are still good times to be had here, but if I was totally wrong and there would be nothing but hard times, then I will still stay here and share it with the people of Hong Kong. I mean, there's no reason to go if things are good, and if things are bad, then there's even more reason to stay.